We all know who Amelia Earhart is, but why don't we talk about any other great female pilots? With the answer, let's welcome the founder of Lion and Orb, Audie Chamberlain.
Why is Amelia Earhart the only female pilot that's celebrated today? Many of you carry an image of her standing in front of one of her planes. And remember her as the first female pilot to cross the Atlantic. But what we don't talk about is the fact that she was the third person to fly across the Atlantic and that she didn't actually fly the plane. She was a passenger on that flight. The great publisher and publicist George Putnam handpicked her out of the 16 women in the country who had a pilot's license at the time. And so after the flight, she wrote a book, she did a speaking tour, and she wrote many articles in newspapers and magazines. What was the message? The message was, it was safe to fly across the continent. And you think about that for a minute. In many ways, Putnam and Earhart paved the way for commercial airline industry, the commercial airline industry. So the takeaway here is Putnam created the story did not create George Putnam. Let's flash forward to a more recent event. It's more relatable, and let's look at this same concept, but in our times. In 2012, the legendary base jumper Felix Baumgartner partnered with Red Bull, and we not seeing the slides? Okay, thank you. And together, they created a campaign where he jumped 25 miles from Earth and broke the speed of sound as he plummeted from a space capsule, in the stratosphere. And what's the lesson that we learned from this? The CEO of Virgin Galactic called his jump he's a true explorer, that Felix was a true explorer, and that he is helping with space exploration. So when this happened, 52 million people tuned in live to watch his crazy ass jump from space. But this is paving the way for space tourism, which we will see in our lifetime. Currently, there's 552 people that have been to space. All of us will have the opportunity. There's 6 that can fly in this plane that you see right here on the screen. And that's coming. So the lesson we learned is when Felix partnered with Red Bull, what he did was he created an opportunity for him to be remembered in history for generations to come. Why am I not talking about real estate? I've spent the last 14 years of my life studying public relations and how it works in marketing. And I've worked for Fortune 500 companies, and I've spent the last 8 years consulting for over 2,000 brokers and agents. I love this world that we're in. Home ownership is the American dream. And where do we think that dream comes from? You guessed it, public relations. In the late 40s, early 50s, this man you see behind me, William Levitt, he had an idea. He wanted to get 17,000 people to leave the city we're in right now and move to a potato field surrounded by farms in the middle of nowhere, Long Island. Thank you. So how was he going to do this? He partnered with a gentleman named Paul Townsend, who was a publicist and a journalist. And together, they worked on a local media, then national media campaign that generated demand. And to this day, he is considered the father of the modern American suburb. And this comes from PR. This is very much something that benefits all of us to this day. And what did we learn here? You have to play the long game. They spent years building demand. They had spent years creating these stories and building demand, and at the time, only 4 out of 10 Americans owned a home. By the time they were done, when the influx of veterans from World War II started to come, we know the rest is history. That number climbed to over 60%. So the message here is that both Mr. Levitt and Townsend, they played the long game. So just to wrap it up, next time someone asks you what public relations is, remember, it's not a press release. It's not spin. We are the co-authors of history. Thank you so much.